Good afternoon to you. Mark Sudduth, HurricaneTrack.com here. It is Tuesday, July the 5th, 2022, and it's time for the Hurricane Outlook and Discussion. And today, we are going to do some discussion and discussing. This is going to be pretty long today, so sit back and enjoy it. Take it all in. Take a deep breath and get in the zone because we got a lot to talk about here, all right? You might need to watch it twice. That's fine, or you can listen to it now, watch it later. Whatever. We got a lot to talk about, so let's jump in. First, the Atlantic, nice and quiet. In the Pacific, not so much. We have Bonnie out here. Category 3 hurricane, that'll be moving out into the open Pacific. And once it gets out into this region, it'll encounter cooler sea surface temperatures and a less favorable thermodynamic environment. It is, however, producing some swells that are emanating out towards the coastline up here. So you folks along the Mexican coast, be aware of that. Makes for some good surf and whatnot, but you still have to be careful because those breaking waves can cause issues. All right, over at tropicaltidbits.com, the great Dr. Levi Cowan. Hopefully he's feeling better. Still got the satellite animations going. We appreciate that very much. What do we got out there? Well, we got a tropical wave coming off Africa here. Pretty suppressed look overall to the Atlantic. The not so favorable phase of the MJO or the Madden-Julian oscillation is kind of passing through. A lot of sinking air. The rising air is over in the Westpac where we've got some tropical activity over there. I didn't have any of it pulled up. It's not that I don't care, but we have so much to talk about that I'm going to focus on the Atlantic Basin and some other related news today. But the big rising air situation, the favorable phase of the MJO, way over on the other side of the world than what we're seeing here. And as such, not a lot of convection anywhere in the Atlantic. This is interesting, though. Got to keep our eyes on it. It's there, and I'm going to show you a different perspective of it in a moment. A little bit of shower and thunderstorm activity affecting the windwards, and there's a little puff of clouds or two down here in the southwest Atlantic, but nothing coming together. Again, it's just not a favorable time period, and no, hurricanes don't just generally pop up out of nowhere. There is no, it came without warning. We can see these things coming. Generally speaking, I know you're going to say, well, what about Colin? But Colin wasn't a hurricane. And that one kind of slipped in between the cracks there. A very weak, disorganized, short-lived tropical storm the other day right up in here. You remember that. But elsewhere, these bigger features, nah, they're not going to just pop up out of nowhere. You'll have plenty of time to see, especially with the tools that we've got this day and age. There's Bonnie in the eastern Pacific. And by the way, nice little cluster of thunderstorms. Not so nice if you're under it. Down there in parts of southern Mississippi and in southeast Louisiana. So if you're traveling through there, it looks rather nasty down there. And the dew points, the warm waters of the Gulf, I bet that is some torrential rain and a lot of lightning probably. All right, this is a great perspective. I really love this product here from the University of Wisconsin. There's our one system that has come off Africa. Look how it's starting to curl up. The moisture plume down here, and it's kind of put a dent again into that Saharan air right there, that moisture. Although out in front there's a pretty deep area of Saharan air injecting itself into the pattern. But that's an interesting look. You know, we're only in the first part of July. It's definitely sort of bending the intertropical convergence zone up here, this monsoon trough trying to set up. You know, you never know. These things are out here. You got to watch them. Tropical wave energy right here moving through the islands. Most of the moisture with it down here towards the windwards. You need the moisture still up here in the Virgin Islands and even in Puerto Rico. I know you had some flooding rain recently, but you could still use some rainfall. Lots and lots of moisture here in the western part of the basin, but nothing coming together. A lot of energy, a lot of precipitable water. That's what these oranges and yellows and reds and even some of these purples show are the total precipitable water values. And look, at the top of the scale here, we're talking 3 inches. That's really high. When you have PWAT that's 3 inches, wow, that is a lot of available water in the atmosphere if only something could come and wring it out. All right, couple of things here related to what we're going to talk about for a good majority of the rest of the update here. Sea surface temperature anomalies. Still pretty warm relative to average down in the deep tropics. A colder subtropics, and it's cooled off a little bit even more in the subtropics up here off the coast of, well, let's call it the Iberian Peninsula. Still a little bit warmer than average right up against the coastline, northwest of Africa and to the west of Spain and southwest of the UK and vicinity. The La Nina still pretty much intact. A little bit of a warming trend in the equatorial Pacific out here, but a pretty strong trade burst has resumed as of late. In other words, the trade winds are really screaming across here, especially farther out, like in this area. And I think we're going to resume the cooling process in the tropical Pacific before all is said and done. We can zoom in on this. Let's make it a little bit larger here. And you can see clearly south of 20 degrees north latitude, all across the main development region, on this particular data set, which used to be the NOAA NESDIS, now it's called the NOAA Coral Reef Watch. And I've been using this particular product for years and years and years. There's a lot of different versions. You can look at the CDAS values. You can look at 7-day averages. You can look at overnight temperatures. There's just a bunch of different data sets. If you've been watching my videos, I think 99% of the time, going back probably more than 10 years, this is the data set that I've been using. It hasn't failed me yet. What it's showing is a pretty warm MDR. Not the warmest we've ever seen, but you can clearly see there's very little in the way of cool anomalies, departures from the average, in that rectangle that I drew. All right, that's really important to note. A generally warm MDR here, we'll put a W for warm, and a cool subtropics up here, mostly favorable for a busy hurricane season. Let's zoom in real quick to the Gulf and the Caribbean. Now this is where it's just ridiculous, especially around Florida and all of the Gulf of Mexico. Warmer, way warmer than it should be. 1, 2, even 3 degrees Celsius in some locations. The Northwest Atlantic still very warm, very, very warm compared to average. This is warmer than it should be. These are not actual temperatures. I'll show you that in a moment. But these are your departures from the long-term average. And by and large, everything is generally warmer than it should be. A little bit to a lot, depending on where you are. What about actual temperatures? This is still pretty astonishing. All of this area, all through here, 30 Celsius plus. At least we got rid of a lot of the 31 Celsius areas. I bet that's a little island right there of 31C. But, you know, the Gulf is warm. It's always going to be warm enough. And it is a little extra warm this year. Again, these are the actual. Those are your departures right there. Zoom in. Look at that. That's that area right through there that I just showed you. All of that is, let's just look at the scale down here. It is a thematic map. At least 1 to 2 degrees Celsius in the shading, this gradient in here. That's really significant. I said this before. If you took a cup of water and you warmed it up a degree Celsius, that's a couple of degrees Fahrenheit, you probably wouldn't notice. Maybe you would. If your bath water, 1 or 2 degrees Fahrenheit, Celsius, whatever, you might not notice. You warm it 3 degrees, you might start noticing that. But it's the energy in that bath water or that cup of water. It is insignificant compared to the energy of just the Gulf of Mexico, much less the pretty vast expanse of the main development region of the deep tropics, the Atlantic, the tropical Atlantic. When you warm that much ocean, a degree Celsius, even a half a degree, you add a lot more energy to the upper ocean, and that energy bleeds off in the form of latent heat, moisture, humidity. You step outside. I know here in Wilmington these last few days, ever since Colin passed through, you go outside and it is just like there's a wall of air hits you, and you can just reach out and grab some water and drink it. It's just that dense of a high precipitable water value in the atmosphere. And these anomalies here help to fuel that. Even if it's just a little bit equals a lot of extra energy going forward. All right, off the East Coast, speaking of my area, water temperatures down here, 27 Celsius right offshore. Not bad. That's about 81 Fahrenheit. So very warm out here relative to average and actual. And we're warming it up a little bit up to New England and those areas. And it's interesting, I showed you this a minute ago. Those water temperatures are cold. 14, 15, 18 Celsius. Like freezer, you know what's off if you go in there. I mean, it is. It's really cold, but it is warmer than it should be. And you can see that right here on these anomaly charts. All this area, all up through here, the North Atlantic off of Nova Scotia and Newfoundland. considerably warmer than it should be, despite the fact, right up here off of Nova Scotia, those water temperatures are still quite chilly. They're just warmer than they should be by a pretty good stretch there. All right. Over at Storm 2K, now this is where we got to talk a little bit. If you remember back about a month ago, I did a video, and I titled it and promoted it as something like, come in, close the door, sit down, take a seat, whatever, we got to chat. And it was a very, very ambitious, aggressive Euro forecast for the hurricane season that really got everybody's attention. 19 named storms it was predicting, the Euro seasonal, an ace of about 225, just like ridiculous, off the charts. I don't want to say scary, because when you're scared of something, you usually don't understand it. We fear what we don't understand. And so scary is not the right word, but it was certainly alarming. Well, the July version of that model guidance came out recently, and people are talking about it. So over here at Storm 2K, this site's been around a long time. I've been a member since 2003. They are one of our Patreon supporters, and there's a lot of good information here. People aggregate it. They kind of do the work for you, so to speak. You want to know what's going on? Just pop into Storm 2K at the various threads. And one of those threads is this 2022 indicator thread. All these different factors, and then beyond this, the day 16 model guidance. And here it is. Andy Hazelton, as expected and hoped. I mean, if it got worse, I think we'd all just have to go move to Kansas. But as expected, the Euro has backed off, and we'll just expand it here. The previous gargantuan forecast, these are my words here, just kind of embellishing what the tweet says, showing an ace of 140% of normal. The last one was like 170. Yeah, there it is. And a much more calm-ish look compared to where we were. But, and there's a giant, like we need a huge but. I need like we don't want to get offensive, but there's a huge but here. Do not look at this and think, we're off the hook. This is great news. It's good news, that it didn't go even higher, but it does not mean that we're not going to have a busy hurricane season. 140% of normal is still around 180, 185 ace points if memory serves. That's a pretty busy season. It's still calling for something like 8 hurricanes or so. We'll look at what Phil Klotzbach says about it in a second. But I thought this was interesting. It came out, these graphics and the seasonal guidance and all kinds of opinions about it, so forth and so on. Here's what Phil said about it here. 15 named storms for the rest of the season. We have 8 hurricanes to go, according to the Euro. So let's get rid of this and go back over here to Storm 2K. And you can see what different people are saying about it. Some of it's repeated. People saying they're not surprised by it. However, it's still predicting a season with 140% of the norm. That's still, like they say, 140 to 190 ace. That's a big season. Formidable, even. So you got to take that very seriously. And then what about the overall pattern? The numbers are interesting, but like SFL, South Florida Kane says, the Euro went down in its numbers, so what? It still shows a hyperactive season. More importantly, and I think we can all agree to this, it doesn't matter how many are out there that form necessarily, as much as it does where they end up. Those 4 words, where they end up. And that is the key. Yes, there are ships, the Maritimes, Maritime Interest, and the Canadian Maritimes. Even a hurricane out to sea, what we call a fish storm. Come on, that's just a misnomer. But I'm just saying, for us people on land, the numbers don't tell us anything about where they're going to end up. And that is a big deal. And so the Euro does give us some clues there. And as SFL Kane rightly points out, look at the ECMWF steering. And you can surely see that the red here over southeast Canada. Let me just click on this. I think we can enlarge this. I told you we were going to go long today. This is very important. We'll kill that and go big. There we are. Let's get the color black going. This is the anomalous ridging. This is the 500 millibar pattern roughly the steering flow. All right, that is a pattern that says whatever forms is more likely going to go west. So we're going to have 8 hurricanes instead of 11 or whatever. 15 named storms instead of 19. We've already had 3, and I think the Euro forecast is from July on, so it's still going to be pretty close to being accurate overall with its June forecast of 19 named storms. Let's don't lose that, all right? June's done, and we had 3 named storms. Anyhow, yes, they were short-lived. One of them became Bonnie in the eastern Pacific, and if it wasn't for climatology and the fact that that system went across South America, you know, Bonnie would have been Bonnie. I mean, it became Bonnie in the Caribbean, but it became a hurricane in the eastern Pacific. My point is, this is what really matters right here, is where they end up. And if you know meteorology and your patterns that look with anomalous ridging across the North Atlantic out of southeast Canada, there you go. That's a very telling look right there that whatever does form is going to have a difficult time turning out to sea. And I'm not just talking about the United States. We're talking about all of this land area down here from the Caribbean to Central America, Mexico, the Greater Antilles, the Bahamas, Florida, Texas to Maine. Yes, that's the kind of look that you should say, I need to make sure I'm ready. We'll get to that in a minute. So interesting, different notes and things that people are picking up on here. The density maps, pretty significant towards the United States as a whole. Generally speaking, especially over here in the Western Gulf, that's kind of different. I hadn't seen that in a bit. This is a pretty interesting forecast. I think you would agree. And then just different maps that people are posting. This is way out into the future. The monthly ensemble mean for August 2022 from the Euro. Look at that anomalous ridging over where? Southeast Canada, the extreme northeast part of North America. Anything that tries to form gets trapped, and it's got a gateway somewhere. Who knows? We have to pay attention to this stuff. The numbers, it's like in basketball. They say that so-and-so shot 36 shots. Well, if none of them went in, who cares? I'm serious. Somebody throws 15 passes in the Super Bowl, but nobody caught any. Who cares? They're worthless. We can have 10 hurricanes out there, and if none of them hit the United States or other land areas, then the season isn't impactful. It's not just about hurricanes, though. I got to be careful. But I think you follow me here. There's more to it than the numbers. Interesting forecast from the Euro, but it's not the complete story. Now to this. Interestingly enough, the folks over here at in London at the let's see, where are they now? It says Euro Tempest. Yeah, they're in London. I think they used to be at the University College over there. Doesn't matter. Anyway, it's by Adam Lee. It used to be Saunders and Lee. I got to read this stuff and see who's doing what. This has been around a long time. Anyhow, TSR, that's the company, Tropical Storm Risk. They do a lot of work for reinsurance and the insurance industry as a whole. And so, yes, they do their own forecast like Dr. Klotzbach et al. Does. And they're calling for the continued forecast of above normal activity for the Atlantic Basin. And if we can scroll down here and see what they're calling for from here on out. Tropical storms, 18, 9 hurricanes, 4 of them intense, with an ACE of 150. That is a formidable forecast. Couple that with what I showed you over here with the steering pattern, and you better be on your toes anywhere in the lower 48, the islands, Central America, you name it. All right, so interesting stuff right over here, Storm 2K. It's a free site. Join up if you're not a member already. Great. This is before the true age of social media. These old message boards, this has been around a long time. I love it. Good people over there, and I appreciate their supporting our project financially each and every month. So, looking out ahead for the next, let's go to 10 days and see what's happening out there. This is the GFS 850 millibar level. There is Bonnie. Here's our big, gigantic area of high pressure all across the Atlantic here. That's the Azores high. There's the Bermuda high, roughly. Little trough in the middle there. And, man, it is just massive. Pumping in the warm, moist air, hot, moist air to the southeast. I mean, it is sultry outside. So that's it. That's the look where we are now. Let's go out into time and see what it shows, if the arrows will cooperate. So let's see. That's 36 hours. That's 48 right there. Now, right off the bat, a couple of interesting things. Look at this down here, pretty far to the south. Another little piece of energy over here. You never know. They look innocuous now. They could show up later. That's why you have to watch everything during hurricane season. There's 72 hours, not much out there. 96, more of the same. Maybe a little bit of an impulse goes through the islands down there. Not much to it, though. Day 5, pretty clear overall. And then out to day 6, 7. And there's a nice tropical wave right there by about day 7. See that? And the trade winds starting to relax out here a little bit. So maybe some more warming in the deep tropics. We'll see. Finally, that was day 7. There's 8. And then finally 9 and 10. Not much overall, but this gets us out to about mid-July. There's a nice little tropical wave coming off there. The trade wind's trying to turn a little bit. Slowing of the trades out here. Yes, it's all headed towards, once we get out of this suppress phase of the MJO, a more active look towards the end of the month and into August. We'll get there, though. It's only July 5th, for crying out loud. So, that's the look. That's what we're looking at. One more thing. I want to switch over here to the desert southwest and talk about the monsoon just for a second. Go back to this. Partly because I'm headed out there in a couple of weeks, and I have a huge fascination with it, and it matters because out here, the extreme drought, the Lakes Mead and Lake Powell, Lake Mead, Lake Powell, those two lakes, record low levels, a lot of people's livelihoods, you name it. It's a big deal. So the monsoon itself is also a big deal. And if we just kind of scroll through the GFS here, notice how it's kind of quiet over the next couple of days, but then it makes a little bit of a resurgence. All that green you see, that's good. That's really good. We want that big time. So maybe a resurgence of the monsoon as we get out towards and past mid-month. I'll be heading out there on the 21st for about a week with one of our supporters and colleagues from Denver, Matt. We're going to go out there and do some reporting, set up some cameras for a few things, get some lightning photographs and time lapses, maybe some flash floods in some of those canyons. I'm just fascinated with it. And, when you get a tropical cyclone up there, which might happen this year, you never know, it really lets loose and it can change the landscape in a hurry. So that's part of my fascination with it. Plus, it's just beautiful out there. If you've ever been there, monsoon or not, it is gorgeous in the desert southwest. It's like visiting another planet. All right, don't forget, on YouTube, please subscribe to the channel, like what we're doing. I hope you do. Share with your friends, neighbors, colleagues, whatever. Put it on your Reddit, your social media. That's fine to do. The bigger we grow, the better we can do. And you know the rest. You know how it works. But, at the end of the day, it's great to have you there on your side of the screen, listening, watching, commenting, interacting. It's just fantastic, and I do appreciate it as we start our next month here, month 2 of the 2022 Atlantic hurricane season. Will this graphic come to pass and we end up with, another bunch of hurricanes to go? I think it's like 8 more, something like that. We'll see. The ACE, maybe 180, 190. We'll see. It is certainly an interesting look overall. And the best thing you can do is be ready, remain calm, as they say, and just have a plan. And I'll do my part to educate you along the way. All right, have a great rest of your Tuesday. Don't forget, too, we do have the morning update that is called What's Up in the Tropics, a much, much more brief, encapsulated version of what we're going to talk about later in the day on most days. All right, once things get really busy, it's going to be interesting to see if I can still keep that under 5 minutes. That morning update. I do try to keep it short and to the point. All right, I'm out of here. I'm going to put this on YouTube for you. CJ will put it on Facebook later. I am Mark Settle for HurricaneTrack. Thanks for tuning in. I'll be back with more for you tomorrow morning.